So last week we looked at inheritance, we looked at traits, we talked about so many things. So this week we'll be continuing with genetics, okay? We'll be continuing with genetics and then human traits. Now we'll be looking at four key things. Mendelian inheritance application. We talked about Mendelian law, genetics last week. We talked about the three laws of segregation, talked about the independent assortment, and then the law of dominance. But don't worry, I'm going to review everything before entering the next one, okay? So we'll also be looking at human inheritance and what disorders. And then we'll be looking at variations too. That's polyploidy and sex-linked trait. And to cap it all, we'll now be looking at what a practical colored seed inheritance model. Okay, so a quick recap. Genetics is what? Genetics is a branch of biology that studies heredity and variations in organisms. Alright, so I will explain now. Hope all of us are still together, ba? Okay. So genetics is just what? Is a branch of biology, first of all, which means it's not outside biology. It's what? An aspect of biology. Genetics, what it does is do what? To study heredity. What is heredity? How characteristics, how traits are passed down from what? Parents to offspring. So when you talk about genetics, whenever you hear the word genetics, it is what referring to how what? Inheritance, characteristics, how those peculiar traits, the fact that your mom gave birth to you and you are looking like your mom, or the fact that in your family you are the only tall person there and you are looking just like your what? Dad. Genetic studies how is it that out of four of your siblings, two resemble your mom in complexion, the other two resembles your dad. Genetics also looks at the possibility that your own child you are going to give birth is going to either resemble you, probably one characteristic, maybe though is red this side, let's just say one of you have a blue eye. What's the chances your daughter is going to inherit that your very peculiar blue eye? Are you getting me? So this is everything we look at in what? Genetics. Also very important, genetics also what? Looks at variations in organisms. Variations in organisms. Now, a very popular something you can very quick experiment. Look at your family now. Let's say your mom and your dad. There are variations within these two organisms, okay? Within these your parents now. Probably your mom have an oval face and your dad have a what? Round face. Probably your dad is what? Taller than your what? Mom. All these things are what? Variations. Your mom can have what? Fair skin and your dad's skin can be what? Your dad's skin can be what? Dark. Are you with me? All these are what? Little variations that can what? Exist within what? A species. Now, I think I've mentioned traits, right? Now, anytime you hear about traits are what? Inheritable characteristics. Okay? Traits, that's TRAITS. There are inheritable characteristics. Now, not every characteristics of a human being are what? Inherited. When I talk about characteristics, I mean what? Features you can look and see. Okay, let's look at this now. Imagine you see a bodybuilder, someone that lifts weight, have six packs, have what? Broad shoulders, the biceps muscle are what? Well or developed and all. Now, that's what a very peculiar feature as well in a bodybuilder. Now, genetics is telling us that if that bodybuilder should peradventure what? Get married and then give birth, the son is going to give birth to will not inherit those muscles that he have acquired. The son will not inherit his biceps. The son will not inherit his what? Broad chest and all. No. The genetics is telling us that his son is going to inherit what? Those characteristics that are stored down in the what? Gene, not acquired through what? Physical training. Are we still together? Is anybody lost? All right. So This being said, I want to point out to us that what traits, that's inheritable characteristics. Okay, hope everyone is with their pen and paper, right? This thing I'm explaining now is not in this PowerPoint. Though this thing will be sent to you, okay? So if you are with your pen and paper, just do a little quick something for me. Write traits, and then you put an arrow, some sort of equal arrow, just an arrow with an arrowhead, and then pointing towards inheritable characteristics. Let me illustrate. I mean, you should do something like this. You write traits, you do like this, then inheritable what? Characteristics. Okay? So traits are what? Inheritable characteristics. There are those characteristics that are what? Controlled by genes. Traits are what? Controlled by genes. Now, this being said, what are what? Genes. I'm trying to build a what? Foundation. So when we are flowing, when we continue deeper, we'll be flowing, okay? So first of all, I mentioned that genetics is looked at characteristics that are what? Passed down from parents to offspring. Secondly, these characteristics that are passed down are those that are what? Stored in the genes, not the ones you acquire by training your body. Not peradventure you went to fight, they blow out all of your teeth, and then you give birth to a child that don't have front teeth. No, not that type of characteristics. Or peradventure you have always admired open teeth, and then you brought an iron spoon and slowly what? Perforate your own so you have open teeth. When you give birth, your daughter will not have that your what? Open teeth. Are we together? Okay, very fine. Now, traits are what? Controlled by genes. Okay, these inheritable characteristics are controlled by genes. And then thirdly, what are genes? Genes are what? Segments of the DNA. Genes are segments of the DNA. Let's pause here so we'll not go so far. Alright. So I also want to point out one more thing before we look at the loss of Gregor Mendel. Now, another thing is that I've told us that genes are inheritable characteristics, and these traits are what? Controlled by genes. Now, last week we mentioned that a gene controls a trait, ba? We say that two genes are normally responsible for one trait. Now, you said okay, you use gene for height. Is either you are tall or you are short. And we now what? Said okay, the gene controlling tallness should be capital T. Hope you are still remembering. You said that the what? Gene controlling tallness should be capital T. Then the gene controlling shortness should be small what? T. Now, these two genes are responsible for controlling a single trait, that is height. Now, they are the same because they're almost the same because they are responsible for that single trait height. We now say that the capital T is what? An allele. Allele. Are you with me? So that capital T is what? An allele. What does allele mean? Allele means what? A variant of what? A gene. So an allele means what? A variant of what? A gene. Are we still together? Okay. Any questions so far? So everybody understood.
No question. Yes, sir, we understand.
Okay, that's fine. That's beautiful. Okay, so let's move down to the Mendelian laws. So who is Gregor Mendel first of all? I told us that Gregor Mendel was what? He was a monk. That was still a told us in primary school. Now he did something. He conducted many experiments with pea plants. That's pea plants is a kind of like a plant, but I used to see pea as what green beans, though it's not the same thing though. So he experimented with this species of plants called the what? Peas. P-E-A. Now, he picked peas because they can be easily cross-pollinated, number one. And number two, this plant has what? Observable characteristics. They have features that you can easily see. First of all, their colour. Second, some are tall, some are short. Some their flowers are wrinkled, some others their flowers are what? Round. Some their flowers are white, some others their flowers are red. So these variations and easy pollination made him choose these plants. He wanted to monitor how traits are being transferred from the parents to the offspring. Now, after conducting many experiments, he found a pattern. All the things that were happening were following patterns. So from all these patterns, he now derived out three laws. So we'll be looking at these laws one by one now. Number one, the law of segregation. And the law of segregation says that each organism contains two alleles for each trait, and these alleles segregate during during what? Gamete formation. Let me read it again and then summarize and then explain, sorry. Each organism contains two alleles for each trait, and these alleles will segregate during gene formation. Alright, so what he was saying is this. He said every organism contains two alleles for trait. Let's continue with our typical height, that's short and tall. Now for the height, for the trait height, we said for you to be tall, you need what? A capital T allele. And then the one controlling shortness is what? A small t. So each organism contains what? Two alleles for every single trait. So is either that organism have what? Is dominant for that particular trait. That that's what? Capital T, capital T. That's homozygous, or it have small t, small t. Heterozygous, or it has, sorry, homozygous recessive, or it also have what? Capital T and small what? T. Now, he went further to say that during gamete formation, these alleles they do what? They segregate. Segregate means separate. So they what? Separate. So let's conduct that little experiment now. Now, one of the things that I told us that happened during gamete formation, that's meiosis, right? That mitosis is for normal division, but in mitosis, we now have a cell with equal number of chromosomes as the parents. That's the end product is what? Two cells that is what? Identical to the parents. Whereas in meiosis, we now have four cells that are not identical to the parent cells. They have what? Half the number of chromosomes of the parent cell. I don't know if you still remember this part we did last week too. So let's say this is a cell and this is what? Two chromosomes. Now, the first law of segregation is saying that when this cell wants to form a gamete, it will separate. It will separate. I will now have what? One capital T here and then small t here. So this is a cell. This is a gamete cell. This is a gamete cell. Let's call it sperm cells each. So this is one sperm cell. This is another sperm cell. Now each sperm cell what? Receive what? An individual allele. Are we together? Let's say this from the parents and then this from the dad, then this one away from the mom. When the mom wants to form a gamete too, she's going to separate. You now have what? Small t here, small t here. Now, during fertilization, what is fertilization? Fusion of male and female gametes to form a zygote. So during fertilization, one of the dad cells, that sex cell will form that sperm. Let's say this was the egg that was formed. Sperm will now meet the egg and will now form what? A new individual. Or this sperm cell can meet this egg cell and will now form what? A short individual too. Is this understood? Any question? Or should I come again? So you should move on. Okay, I think there is no
So
question
please
here.
come again. So please come
Sorry.
again.
All right. So let's start with law of segregation again. Law of segregation is telling us that when parents form a gamete, the two alleles responsible for that particular trait are separated and each gamete what receives one allele. First of all, I told us that every single trait is controlled by two alleles, one from the mom, the other one from the dad. Now, one allele from the mom comes, another one from dad comes, and then we have an offspring. Now, when the offspring reaches the age of maturity and wants to produce sex cells, let's use sperms for example, the alleles you receive from the mom to separate from the one from the dad, and these alleles each will form what? Individual sperm cells. And then I gave us an illustration. Let's say it receives capital T from the dad, small t from the mom, and we now have a boy. When this boy reaches maturation, it will now start producing sperm cells too. For it to produce sperm cells, each of these individual alleles will also what? Split and go separately. So this is what the first law is telling us. Let's do it with another one. Let's use what other trait are you going to use now? Let's use eye color for example. Is either your eye color is black, let's say black or brown. And capital B will be for black and small b will be for brown. Okay. So let's say you receive black and brown from your mom and your dad. This law is telling us that when you want to form sex cells, your own cells will separate as well to form capital B and small b. Well, your question should be, why does this separation occur? Why does this separation occur? Now, this separation occurs because when you now want to give birth, the sperm cell carrying half of the complement of the chromosome will now come and meet the female sex cell too, and the two of them will now fuse to form a baby. Now have B here and T. Sorry, this I use different traits here. Let's say these two want to form again, they will now cross together and form capital T, small t. Okay. I think when we go forward, you now start understanding something because what I want to explain next will cross into the second law. Now, the second law states the law of independent assortment. Independent assortment. That is, genes for different traits can separate individually during the formation of what? Gametes. Let me simplify this grammar now. It's just saying what? That inheriting one trait does not affect the inheritance of the other traits. So law of independent assortment is telling us that you inheriting the gene for being tall does not mean that gene for being tall, once you inherit it, once you are tall, you have to be black. I was telling us last week that independent assortment does not mean, this law is telling us that they say now that you are tall and you are dark does not mean that every other person that is tall must also inherit the gene for being dark. That's complexion. This same law is telling us that if you are short, it does not in any way affect your skin color. That affect your inheritance of a normal gene for your skin color. That is, every trait is inherited independently of each other. Okay, now I'm going to bring out three traits. Number one is what? Height, tall or short. The second trait is eye color, black or brown. The third trait is now complexion, fair or dark. So independent assortment, that is what? It can vary independently without one influencing the other. In a family now, we can now have a child that inherit brown eyes is tall and at the same time have what? A fair skin. The same parents can give birth to another child. The child is still tall, yes, but the child can now have what? Instead of having brown, the child can now have what? A black eye. And then instead of the child being fair, the child can be what? Dark. You can now still have the third what? Child. That same child can still be tall oh, have what? Black eye oh, but now still be what? Fair. So when Mendel now looked at this thing, he was like, wow. So it does not mean that one gene influences the other one. That is, one trait influences inheriting the other one. It does not mean that if you are dark, you must inherit the eye color for brown. He's now saying all of them are inherited what separately. It's not like joining them what together. Are you people still with me? Any question on this one? Or should I move forward? Okay, no question then. Now the third law is the law of dominance. Now something else happened. Let's use for example now. You gave birth to a child. The child is what? Tall. You okay, first let's start from you. You are a very, let's say you are a tall woman or you are a tall young man, and now you give birth to a child, and that child is short, and you are wondering, how is it that me that is tall is giving birth to a short child? And then in the third generation, that child will still give birth, and then the baby again is tall. And everybody is wondering, is it that tallness disappeared and appeared again? Are you with me? Okay, let's use another example now. Let's now say you have what? A brown eyes. And then you give birth, you get married to a woman, and then you people give birth. Your child now, instead of having that what? Brown eyes, your child now have what? A blue eye. And then your child gives birth again, and people now notice that in that third generation, the child he gave birth to now have what? A black eye again. So this story is now telling us that it's not as if some traits appeared and disappeared. No. It's just that some traits have the ability to what? Affect the expression of the other one. Sorry, some allele, not trait here, I mean, some allele has the ability to do what? Affect another allele. I think I have to. This is our normal height. Now, this is a child. The child has what? An allele for being tall and also an allele for being short. This is a heterozygote. Heterozygote means two different alleles. Capital T is homozygous. Small t is homozygous. That's the same, the same. Now, in an heterozygous organism, one, he has a gene for being tall, a gene for being short. Now, the law of dominance is telling us that, sometimes, okay, if you are this baby now, is it that you have the ability to choose which one to be? Can you say, okay, I want to be tall? Along the way, you can say, okay, I don't want to be tall again. I want to now be short. No. The law is telling us that some of these allele, they have these special characteristics to dominate over the other one. Now, the capital ones in genetics, we normally represent dominance with what? Capital letters. Okay. This capital one now, this gene for this allele for being tall can mask, that's cancel out the effect of shortness, and then the baby will appear as what? Very tall. Let's use another gene color. Let's use another trait. Capital B and small b. Where capital B means black eye, small b means blue eye. Now, if you give birth to a child that is heterozygous for these two traits, the child has the ability to either have what? A black eye or a blue eye. Instead of nature start to quarrel over itself, which one should express? Or should we express a black eye? In the middle, we will now have a blue eye. It derived a means whereby one allele will be what? Stronger than the other one. That's dominance. It will cancel out the effect of this guy. And eventually you will now give birth to a baby with what? A black eye. Now, what I want to point out is that these genes, these allele that are cancelled out, they did not disappear. Peradventure, you should marry another woman with the same trait as same genotype as yours. If peradventure during the law of segregation, these two will divide to form individual gametes. This will divide to form individual gametes too. Let's say that this gamete comes and fuses with this gamete. You will now have what? B, B. And eventually, your offspring, you have what? A blue eye. I don't know if this is still there. Is there any question here? Should I recap? Any question? Okay, so we should move on. All right. So, to what we actually have today, application of what? Mendelian inheritance. I just drew us back so we can what? So we'll not be floating, especially for those that missed last week's class. Now, application of what? Inheritance. Sorry, application of what? Mendelian inheritance. Now, Mendelian principles are applied in number one, predicting genetic outcomes in monohybrid and dihybrid crosses. So this thing we just learnt now can help us to predict the phenotype of an individual we can have. Let me show us something now. Let's say this is a mom, this is a dad. From using the laws of genetics, you can predict the outcome. You can see if this gamete now is segregated and comes and meet this gamete, you have an individual that is what? Dominance for the trait, tallness. If capital T should meet small t, you have an individual that will express the what? The gene tallness. Though he has what? A recessive gene for being short. You can also predict that if this capital T again should meet this capital T, it's still capital T, capital T. If capital T should meet small t, my diagram is messy though, but just pardon me. So we have capital T, capital T, capital T, capital T, small t, capital T, small t. I think there's a mistake somewhere. Okay, so you can draw this in your book, okay, and then verify it for me. There'll be no time to continue the drawing. So it's saying that we have the ability to do what? Predict the outcome of genes. You can look at the parents and say your mom is tall, you are short. I'm looking at your line age. Probability that you will give birth to a tall child is 50%. Probability of giving birth to a short child is what? 50%. That's what genetics what enables us to do. Secondly, it helps us to understand hereditary diseases just like cystic fibrosis and sickle cell anemia. I believe most of us have more heard about cystic fibrosis. It's just what a disease condition that affects the lungs and digestive system, whereby there is buildup of what mucus. Don't worry, I'll not go into that one. Let's focus on the one that is very common for us, sickle cell anemia. Now, sickle cell anemia is a very, very common disease in Africa. It occurs whereby when an offspring inherits an S chromosome from two parents. That's SS. That's what you're hearing. So there are genotypes of blood AA, AS, SS. So law of genetics will allow us that know that if you are AA and you marry AS, there are chances you give birth to AA. That's what? A child that is not a carrier. AS, AS. You can give birth to a carrier. A child that is not a carrier. Another AS. Are we together? Are we together? Let me correct something now.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. I've corrected it. So you can give birth to AA, another AS. That is AA times 2 and then AS. times 2. Sorry, my drawing this evening is just messy, but let's continue. Now, in a case whereby you are AS and you say that love is carrying all around, you want to carry your wife from here to the moon, all in the name of love, and you go and marry another AS. Science is telling us that there is going to be what? Casualties. In the sense of what? When this gene meets this gene, it gives rise to a healthy individual, no problem. When this allele, sorry, allele I mean, meet this allele, it gives rise to what? A carrier, no problem. But the problem arises when this allele now meet this allele, you give rise to what? An individual with the disease. That is someone manifesting the what? Disease. Sickle cell anemia. First of all, the SCI is what? Recessive. Recessive alleles are only manifest when there are what? Homozygous. That is when you inherit two pairs. So peradventure you should inherit two pairs of these what? ASS cells. You will now what? Exhibit the disease. Okay? Even if this S mess with this A, you still give rise to what? A carrier. So from this now, looking at number one, you can predict genetic outcomes. You can say, okay, the chances of you giving birth to what? A someone manifesting disease is what? 3:1. That's chances of you giving birth to a normal child is 3:1 abnormal child. Three of them are going to be normal, one is going to be abnormal. Chances of you giving birth to a carrier is 2:4. What? 4. Sorry, let me come again. I think I made a mistake with my statistics. Chances of you giving birth to what? An individual manifesting that disease is one child in every four child. There are one, two, three, four possible offspring. So chances of you giving birth to someone that has sickle cell anemia is one in every four births. Chances of you giving birth to a normal child that is not what having sickle cell anemia is what? 3 in every 4 births. Chances of you giving birth to what? Giving birth to what? A child that is not manifesting sickle cell anemia but is carrying the recessive threat. That is, the person is a carrier. Chances of you giving birth to a carrier is what? 2:2. Are you full with me? Then chances of you giving birth to a perfect child that is not a carrier and not manifesting disease is also what? 1:4. Is there any confusion with these statistics? So that means all of us are together. Beautiful. Now moving on to the third one, selective breeding and agriculture. I'll tell us a little story to explain this. In the village, when we want to plant cassava, first time I went to the village around my SS2, I think, we went to plant cassava. Now, my grandma brought some stalks, what's it called, Sef? And then we broke the heads of that what stick. We wanted to plant it. She told me, don't plant this one. I asked her why. See, what was saying in Igbo was that this one is not what healthy. Hmm? So we did not plant that one. Now I got to understand. Okay, another example is this. There's a mango tree we have. That mango tree is tasteless. The mango does not have taste. Finally, the tree was cut down. That tree was never propagated again. Why? Because it does not have taste. There's another one that tastes very, very well. The one is very good. We call it sweet mango. That one is what everybody wants to plant. So law of genetics will allow us to do what? Do what is called, what my grandma was doing then was selective breeding, selective agriculture. She will say this one is a good seed, let us plant it. This one is not good, let us not plant it. Are we together? Now the last one is what? Punnett squares. Now Punnett squares are tools, just like this thing I was drawing in. A Punnett square could have helped us do it better. I think I can illustrate it part. Punnett square is something like this. Then you have your mom's thread here, AS, AS. Oh, this is very nice. Now, chances of giving birth, you can have what AA here, AS here, AS here, and then SS. It's very nice. Why was I even stressing myself? All right. So taking the phenotype, you have normal A is what? AA is 1, AS AS 2, then S here is what? 1. So total is what? 4. Chances of you having a capital AA is what? 1 is to 4. Capital of you having AS, that is a carrier, is what? 2 is to 4. Chances of you having what? Someone manifesting disease is still what? 1 is to 4. Alright, so let's move to the next slide. I think this topic is very clear, ba. Is there any question? Okay, wonderful. So next is what?
Yes, sir,
Human
it's very clear.
inheritance. Okay, thank you very much for the feedback. Alright, so next is what? Human inheritance and disorder. Now we have looked at genetics, we have discovered the laws, we have looked at how it applied. Now we want to now look at it in the what? We have want to leave theory a little. Actually, everything within is theory though, but we now want to talk about more practical things you can look at. Now, some traits in humans follow what? Mendelian inheritance. Now, these traits can show what? Dominant disorder and what? Recessive disorders. Okay, let me not jump. Let me start small, small, so everybody can follow me. Now, first of all, if everything should go properly, just like you have been drawing, everyone that have what? A black eye, there are chances you can give birth to brown or black, continue like that. Me now that is tall, if I should marry someone that is short, chances are that some of our children will be tall, some others are going to be short, some others are going to still be what? Average. Though that one is not complete dominance. We are not going there, sha. Okay. But now variations can occur. That's extreme variations. Variations that are what? Harmful. These ones we can call them disorders. Now, in the process of what? Hereditary, disorders can occur. Now, what is even a disorder? A disorder is when something is not following a proper route. Let's say it is not following a proper order. That's disorder. As simple as that. Now, let's say you are fair. Your husband is also fair, and nobody in your bloodline is dark. Why I use that word is because you may carry a recessive thread. So nobody in your bloodline is dark. So which means you are pure for being fair. Your husband is pure for being fair. Now, there are chances you can give birth to an albino. An albino is an abnormal condition whereby there is what? Loss of pigmentation in your skin. Now, you giving birth to an albino now deviates from the normal order of inheritance, whereas your child should be fair. Okay, I think that was fair. Okay, may confuse you guys. Let's use being dark. Let's say being dark is dominant. You are dark, your husband is dark. Everybody in your bloodline has been dark for ages. And now you come and you give birth to an albino. The villagers, so everybody will be very, very sure. Now, you that is dark, husband being dark, your bloodline are what? Dark people. Now you giving birth to an albino, they may call it what? A taboo. And they fit throw am to what? Evil forest. Alright, let's come back
They
to
will say
reality
it's a
now.
bastard.
Sorry? Are you saying anything? Okay, so I'll continue. So in this case now that there is a deviation, instead of you having what giving birth to a dark child, you are giving birth to an albino. It means that a genetic disorder was occurred. Now, what we want to look at now is what? Genetic disorders that can occur and how they are what? Inherited. Okay? Hope I've laid the foundation here. So number one is what? Dominant disorders. Dominant disorders. So first of all, I've explained what a disorder is, something that deviate from the normal status quo. Now, dominant. From our knowledge of alleles, there are two types of alleles, the ones that are dominant and the ones that are recessive. Now, dominant alleles are alleles that can what manifest irrespective of what homozygous or heterozygous states. Recessive alleles are recessive alleles are those that can only manifest phenotypically when there are what two. I think I'm using big grammars, but let's break it down. Dominant alleles are those alleles that can manifest even if there are one copy or two copies. Recessive alleles are those ones that will only manifest when they have two exact copies. So if there is one copy of a recessive allele and another copy of a dominant allele is going to manifest. Now going back to using our height trait, we have capital T which is dominant, small t which is recessive. Now capital T is dominant for tallness, for height, being tall. Small t is what recessive, that's being short. We are saying that even if you have something like this, the child will still be tall. If you have something like this, the child will still be tall. But if you have something like this now, this first one, the child cannot be short. But once this allele manifests double, that has two copy, the child will definitely be what? Short. Okay? Beautiful. Now let's move on. So we are now seeing dominant disorders. Dominant disorders are those disorders that can manifest even when what the child inherits a single copy from the parents. Okay, so dominant alleles are those alleles that can manifest even if it's just a single what copy that the child receives from the parents. Example, Huntington's what disease. This is what is just a neurodegenerative disease whereby your brain cells start to what die out. Eventually with age, you will start eventually with age, you start having what probably unconscious motions, that's uncontrolled motions, and then dementia, you start forgetting things and all. Another one is also what Marfan syndrome. Now, the next type of disorder we can see is called recessive disorders. Recessive disorders. So recessive disorders are those disorders that can manifest when there are what two copies. Recessive disorders are those orders that can manifest when there was two copies. Hope you are still together. Now, let me use the one we have mentioned before. I forgot to put it here. Sickle cell anemia. Now, sickle cell anemia is a recessive disorder. That means it is not dominant. It does not always manifest unless the person inherits two copies of that defective gene. Defective gene. Are you with me? Sorry, defective allele here. In your blood genotype, you have, let me use Punnett square so things will be easier for us. ASA, have AA or AS, AS or SS. Beautiful. Now, when we say this trait is recessive, it means it can only manifest when an individual inherits two exact copies of that defective allele. Now, if you have AA, you'll be normal. If you have AS, you will just be a carrier, but you are still going to be what? Normal. But now, in the case whereas you have SS, that's when you start manifesting what? The symptoms. Hope you are still together. Now, lastly is just what? An application. There is something called a pedigree analysis. This is just used to do what? Trace inheritance pattern what? Across family and determine their what? Status quo. Are we together here? This class is a very short one compared to the normal ones you used to have. Have everyone understood this aspect? Should I move on?
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
All right. Thanks for the feedback. So this is how a pedigree looks like. So this pedigree is what? Some sort of what? A mind map that you can use to what? Track your what? Inheritance from what? Offsprings to what? From parents to offsprings. Now, using the key, red means affected males. Square. First of all, squares means male. Circles means female. So when they are red means they are affected. When they are blue, it means they are what? Unaffected. So you can what? Start tracing them down. This is just a pedigree. You can screenshot this letter, you can trace it down yourself and use it for your further studies. I'll give 5 seconds for that so you can screenshot. Alright. So polyploidy. Polyploidy. Now, first of all, what you have been looking so far is just diploidy in human beings. But a condition can occur whereas that's in organisms, whereas organisms that have more than two sets of chromosomes, we call it polyploidy. In humans, we have two sets of chromosomes, that is 2N. We are diploid organisms. Some other organisms have more than what? Two sets of chromosomes. They are polyploid. You can see what? Triploid. You can see tetraploid. You can even see octaploid. They have 8 sets of chromosomes. Now, this does not follow the normal inheritance pattern we know. So, they are what? Commonly found in plants and not, they are not always found in animals. In short, they are deadly in animals. If an animal what exhibit polyploidy, that animal will definitely die. Now, one of the uses of this polyploidy in plants is that it helps them what? In resistance, drought resistance, fire resistance and what? The rest.
And
So I was explaining polyploidy. Now, why is this important? Through the knowledge of genetics, we can be able to manipulate these things. I told us that polyploidy in plants are useful. They can help fruits to be larger. They can help fruits to be sweeter. Banana, I think banana and watermelon, they are triploid. That's why they're even seedless. Mm. So they can help fruits to be larger and what much more sweet. Now, scientists, that's genetics, right? They have learned a way, they will use chemicals to manipulate the chromosomes to exhibit what? Polyploidy. um So when this happen, you will now what? Have an organism that have more than the normal set of what? Chromosome. And when this happens in plant, it produces what? Desirable characteristics. Now, the second thing you should also note is what? Sex linked traits. Sex linked trait. In humans, for example, we have 23 pairs of autosomes and then one sex cell, a pair of sex cells. So what does this mean? Okay. So first of all, X and Y are also called what? Sex cells. X and Y are called sex cells. There are the they are called what? Sex chromosomes. Have I been mentioning sex cells since? Sorry, they are called what? Sex chromosomes. Now, the peculiar thing about the sex chromosome is that they what? Carry genes. They carry what? Genes for what? Sexual characteristics. That's characteristics pertaining to what? Sex. Okay, when I talk sex, I mean gender. They can contain characteristics pertaining to what? A gender. And the ability of you being a guy having a broad shoulder is what? Carried by this your what? Y chromosome and the rest. Okay? So these sex cells are responsible for carrying what? Gender related what? Characteristics. Now, in genetics, something happens when some genes are carried by the sex cells. Okay, let me come back a little so we'll flow. First of all, sex-linked traits. Traits controlled by genes. Sex-linked traits are what? Traits that are controlled by genes located on what? Sex chromosome. Okay. Now, traits like hemophilia, color blindness, they are what? Carried on genes located on what? Sex chromosome. What does this mean? Sex-linked traits are traits that are what? Carried by the sex chromosomes. Now, why is this important? It means that some traits that can affect females, some traits that can affect males, when those same alleles are inherited by the females, it will not have any effect on them. For example, color blindness. First of all, it's a fact that women see more colors than men. Now, men also suffer from what? Color blindness. In the sense that what? If the gene that is responsible for carrying colors, which is normally located in X chromosome, has an issue, the males will what? Be color blind for that particular color. Am I making sense? Okay. Now, another example is hemophilia. Hemophilia is what? Inability of the blood to clot. Now, this is very, very common again in males. Why? It is linked to what? Sex cells. These are two individuals. When an individual inherits what? Two X sex cells, that individual is what? Genotypically a female. When you inherit X and Y, you are what? A male. Now, looking at this, some genes are okay. First of all, the X gene carries more this thing, carries more, sorry, the X chromosome carries more gene than the Y chromosome. So the Y chromosome is smaller and carries what? Less gene. It means that some genes located on the X chromosome are not found in what? Y chromosome. I hope I'm not going too advanced. Not I'm trying to make you understand without going too deep. Okay? Now, X chromosome carries more gene than Y chromosome. So it means that some genes carried in the X chromosome are missing in the what? Y chromosome. So what does this mean translating it in genetics? It means that there is now no double allele for some genes. So if those genes are defected, that's there is a problem in the X part, there is no other gene that can mask that effect. It means the boy you would inherit that disease as dominant. Wow. Okay. Let me explain it this way now using an example. Let's go with hemophilia. Hemophilia is inability of the blood to clot. Let's use red to stem blood now. Capital H means you have hemophilia. Small h means you don't have hemophilia. Now, we have two X in females. One of the X gene now is defective, that is, it was spoiled by some mutation. And now that X allele, sorry, I mean allele, not gene. And that X chromosome has what? A defective allele, which is capital H. Another X is what? Normal. It does not have what? Hemophilia. I repeat, one X chromosome contains many genes, but now a gene is defective, meaning it has what? Hemophilia. It does not have the ability to clot blood. The other gene is what? Normal. This gene that is normal will continue to what? Produce clotting factors that allows the blood to clot. So in females, you will not experience things like hemophilia that easily. But now the problem comes from the male part. Why? The males inherit one X and one Y. Later on, you understand the difference between X and Y chromosome. But that is not our focus for today. Okay? So if this X gene is defective, that is, it has hemophilia, there is no other X here that can say, okay, let me support and be producing ability to clot blood. So it means that child, that young boy is at risk. If that boy have a cut, the person can bleed to death. Am I clear? Is it clear? Let's go again. If that X is normal, it means what? The child will not exhibit hemophilia. Are you with me? Let me repeat myself. Or I should make this much more clear.
Yes,
This
sir.
is a people understood. Or should I explain one more time? Okay, let's go again one more time now. Uh, let's continue. Uh, this is view. We have X, 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 Y. And now we are saying now Y means father, XX means mom. We are now saying that the mom have sorry, the mom have one X allele, one allele that is defective, that is has the ability to produce hemophilia. The other one is normal. So the mom is a carrier. Now the father as well have what? One allele, but he is normal too. If you are to produce meet these two, you are going to have XX, XX, XY, XY. Now, funny enough, you're also going to have what? This XS. This one will be a carrier. This one will be a carrier. This one will be a carrier. This child will be affected. Nothing will happen to this child. Nothing will happen to what? This child too. Is it making sense?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, thanks for your feedback. So we are saying if you should have a father that is normal and a mom that is what? That is a carrier of hemophilia, and we should mate these two. We are going to produce two what? Males. Now in these two males, one male is what? One male is what? Normal. The other male what? Has hemophilia. So there is 50% chances of what? The boys. Ah God, let's take this. I think I have to draw the other two. Or let's use ratio. Now we have one normal male and we have what? One normal. We have one that is what? A carrier. Let me draw the. Sorry, one that is exhibiting hemophilia. Okay. So the two of them are what? Two boys. Let me come again. We are looking at the boys part, at the males, okay? So we have two males first of all. Now, in these two males, one of them have hemophilia. Also, the other one is normal. So chances of giving birth to a boy with hemophilia is 1:2. That is 50%. Chances of giving birth to a normal chances of giving birth to a child with hemophilia is 1:2. Chances of giving birth to a boy with without hemophilia is also what? 1:2. So we can now say the chances of giving birth to a male child that has hemophilia is what? 50%. Looking at the female part, the same thing. Chances of giving birth to us, a female that is normal is 50%. Chances of giving birth to a female that is a carrier is also what? 50%. So after this class, I would love you to browse up more examples so you can practice with them too. I have told us about hemophilia. You can now practice color blindness on your own. There are many other ones. You can find them, browse them, and then practice them using NetSquare. If there is any question, you can refer to it next week. Okay, so practical what illustration is something you can do yourself. This involved using colored beads or seed to model what Mendelian inheritance. So it's something you can do. You can get bead, one, two. I've been doing drawing since, but this time around you can get someone. You will get bead. They say red beads and then black beads. So what you're just going to do is this. Each bead, you just separate them. You say, okay, pair two red bead, that's homozygous. You can call the red dominant. And then pair two black beads, you can call them recessive beads. Now, you will now apply the law of what? Segregation. Separate them into gametes. And then you can pair them together. That way, you can what? Produce your F1 generation, F2 generation, and see how things continue going. Okay? And I'll see how to place more so you can know what you can do when you get back. So you actually say you get the red one that is you can get two red beads and then two black beads. So this would be one parent, this would be one. So this parent have what the talent for being red. Color here is red, right? This one is what? Dominant for red. This one is what? Sorry, this one of these colors should be recessive, the other should be dominant. Let's say being red is recessive. But this is what? Homozygous. Homozygous recessive. Now, when you cross these two individuals, this is now what you have to just do. Instead of drawing pictures, you can use those bits to perform them. You now have what? R here, R2, R, R, B, B, B. Okay? So something like this, you can what? Create many scenarios, do it as much as you like. So this will now encourage you to do what? Understand genetics and probability very, very well. I think we have come to the end of the class. Please, I would love to take our questions. Is there any question? Is there any question at all? So everybody understood this class. Wow. So this is what our Punnett square. Okay. Then we have what S. Sorry. We have what S Y. So here we see that what the woman is normal, right? Only the man that is what a carrier. The woman is normal. Only the man that is what a carrier, which means the man is expressing hemophilia. So we now have what S here, S Y, S Y. First of all, men cannot transfer their what X gene to their male child. So first of all, there can be no male carrier. We are going to express that now. There can be no male carrier, no male child will be affected. A man can only transfer his what male gene to what the female child. Now let's look at it here. One normal S, one affected S, you now have something like this. One S here, one S, you have something like this. Are we together? So looking at this thing now, you will notice that two females are carriers. The two females are carriers, whereas the two males are normal. Are you with me? So none of the children will express the condition hemophilia. Rather, we are going to have we are going to have two perfect male child and then two females as what? Carriers. Are we together? Any confusion?
Yes,
No,
sir.
sir.
Yes,
Is
sir.
the defect on the X chromosome
Yes, yes.
of the
The
of the
defect
man?
of the man exactly. The defect is X-linked chromosome. Now, what we are looking at is X-linked trait. So these traits are only carried on the X chromosome. So once there is a defect in a man, it means the defect is registered in what? X chromosome.
Okay.
Okay. So from this Punnett square now, you can see this. Okay, I'm going to give us the last question for today. A woman is normal for the condition color blindness, and this woman marries a man that has the condition what? Color blindness. What are the chances of giving birth to one, a female carriers, number two, male carriers? So you guys should just draw your Punnett square, solve it, and then tell me the answer. The woman is normal, the man is what? Affected. So what are the chances that the daughters that are giving birth to will be carriers? And what are the chances that the sons that are giving birth to will be carriers too? That's the sons will be affected too.
Um, from you said that the defect is normally on X chromosome.
Yes, the defect is X
Hello,
linked
sir.
for this.
Uh,
Yes, yes,
uh, okay, so if that is the case, the two boys, because they will give birth to two girls and two boys, meaning that the
exactly.
two boys are perfectly okay. Then the
Wonderful.
female will be carriers.
Wow, this is very nice. Okay, so I'm really impressed. I'm really impressed.